This is Lightning Power Lunch, presented by Reif Rum on the Lightning Audio Network with Dave Mishkin and Greg Linnelli.
Yeah, by no means are we out of what we got ourselves in, but we got to learn how to win, and I think today's the right direction. We gotta enjoy the win, but at the same time we got to move on and worry about the next game. So just kind of get back to that feeling again, and this is the right step in the right direction.
Hey, that's what we said. It's a step in the right direction.
Yes.
Hoping for more tonight against let's call it an inferior team, a team that probably disappointing where they are right now compared to at the beginning of the year. In Vancouver, it is what it is, but the Lightning can't control who's on the schedule. You can only control how you play, and there's an opportunity here for the Lightning to win a couple of games in a row here. And I know we won't want to take anything for granted. That's not the point of it, but Vancouver, stats don't lie. They are where they are. The Lightning would love to continue to move up the standings or at least maintain, want to secure a playoff spot. And the way you do it is beating teams you're supposed to. And that would be tonight.
Yeah, Vancouver's in a weird spot right now because they traded away most of their best players. I mean, they traded the best players that they had the first time the Lightning met the Canucks. The Canucks hope that some of the guys that they got back in some of these trades will help them. I mean, they got Zeev Buium, a first-round pick from Minnesota in that trade. They got Marco Rossi, a first-round pick from Minnesota in that trade being the Quinn Hughes trade. They also got Liam Ogren, who's, I mean, let's see where he turns out in terms of his career. They're all playing for the Canucks. Since the first meeting, they've also moved on from Kiefer Sherwood, who had, an impact in that first game. He had a big goal, which the Canucks won in Tampa 6-2. Last year they traded JT Miller. They are a much different looking team than the one that won the division a few years ago. Kind of surprised, I think, some people in winning the division, but they were legitimate division winners. They earned what they got. They won a first-round series, and they lost in the second round. Since then, it's been all downhill. So right around the time that they made the Quinn Hughes trade, they were not doing great, but they were doing well enough to be in the mix in, let's just call it a mediocre West. And right around the time that they traded Quinn Hughes, they just went into a horrific slump. So late December, they made the trade in mid-December, a little past the middle of December. Since December 22nd, starting on December 22nd, they won 6 games. They're 6-21-5. So that is the team. They've fallen off the map. They're well on track to be the first team in kind of the order of lottery balls. They are projected to get the first overall pick. They may not based on the lottery, but they have the best odds. They will have the best odds. I don't really see any other team. As I say that, let me just check and see who's the closest team to them in terms of bad record. I mean, the team ahead of them in the West is Calgary, 11 points up. And the East, the East is deeper, if you want to use that word, than the West. The Rangers are the last place team in the East. They're 14 points up on Vancouver. Vancouver is going to finish 32nd. But of those 6 wins since late December, 3 have come in the last 6 games. So what we sometimes see happening is you trade away some key players. They traded them early. The team exhales. They start losing. It gets contagious. The Lightning experienced some of that, certainly since the Olympic break. But now, some of these newer players are all right, this is what it is. We're going to finish last. Let's just go out and play. And I don't know if it's that simple, but, 3 wins in the last 6 is way better than what they saw before that, where they had 3 wins in, the previous 26 games.
Sure.
So it's just a reminder. The Lightning can't take anything for granted. But your overall point is correct. The Canucks have had a bad year. They have done a lot of losing, and this is certainly a game on the trip where the Lightning are seeing another non-playoff team, but it's in a back-to-back, a tough back-to-back. This is the one where you're if we can get this game, now we know at the very least we're going to finish 500 on the trip, and we can work on getting more points. They don't get the win tonight. Now you're 1-1, and you're heading into the tough back-to-back over the weekend. So from that standpoint, you want the points, and you want to build on what they did in Seattle.
let me give you some perspective here. Not that you need it, but for our audience. If you go back to the Canucks roster 2 years ago, 2023, 24, listen to some of these names and the points. JT Miller led them in scoring 103 points through 81 games. Quinn Hughes, 92 points through 82. Pettersson, 89 points in 82 games.
And that's Elias Pettersson, one of the
Elias
three Petterssons. Yes.
Brock Besser, 73 points in 81 games, 40 goals.
And Elias Pettersson and Besser are still here.
Correct. So now let's take a look at 2025. Elias Pettersson is their leading scorer with 40 points through 59 games.
Yeah.
Besser, 16 goals through 60. Now, Jake DeBrusk, he's there. Vander Kane is there. Drew O'Connor is actually probably having a decent season. But there's, to your point, there's some younger guys. Okay, fine. But it's a drastically different roster. And it's one that had friction because apparently JT Miller and Pettersson couldn't get along.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to know how much of that was accurate and how much of it was somewhat accurate and kind of the media attention. Vancouver is a very intense media market. I mean, you talk to anybody who Dave Randorf would tell you, like, he grew up here. He's like, this is not an easy place to play. Talk about Toronto, Vancouver. The attention on the Canucks is very intense.
Yeah.
So it's clear that there was something going on between Elias Pettersson and Miller, but they did some winning together too, and it's unclear how much of that was, if not overblown, overstated. And no one's going to say exactly. I mean, we're going to have to wait probably years for whatever the actual truth is to probably come out. In other words, out of the mouths of either Miller and or Pettersson themselves. But clearly there was something there enough that it got attention in the media, and it got more attention last year when the Canucks weren't able to follow up their division title well. Yeah. And JT Miller was traded at the end of January last year. Last year they made that trade. They got Hedl, who has had a lot of injury problems with concussions. He took a brutal, by brutal I mean the impact of the hit. It wasn't a dirty hit. We talked about it on the show, but he got absolutely blown up by Tom Wilson early this year. Another concussion. I thought he was out. I thought that was it. Like, he has had so many significant concussions where it's like he gets a concussion, he got a concussion, he tried to come back, he couldn't come back, practicing. He finally comes back, and then he got blown up by Wilson, and it's just like he got another concussion. I actually saw that he came back maybe about a month ago and played a handful of games and got injured again. So that is a tough story for Hedl, who's a great prospect on the Rangers. He was part of that line with Kakko and Lafreniere when the Rangers got to the conference final and lost to the Lightning. Now Lafreniere is the only guy there with New York anymore because Kakko's in Seattle. We just saw him there. So Hedl was one of the guys who came back in the JT Miller trade. JT Miller has had some issues in New York, too, in that the Rangers have had a bad year this year, and he's their captain, and there's some chatter about that. Anyway, the Canucks do have Elias Pettersson. He's coming off a 2-goal game the other night against Florida. He got to 200 goals in his career. He is a very good player. He is a player capable of hurting you if you don't defend well. Besser is capable of scoring. He's got a great shot. You told the fans his stats a couple of years ago. He is having an off year, but if you give him an opportunity to shoot the puck, he can shoot it in. So you do need to be ready to play and play at the level, if you're the Lightning, that we saw the other night. The one guy who I really liked when the Canucks got him, and he's kind of evolved into their leader on defense, it sounds like, is Hronek. They got him from Detroit. Detroit was like, we're done with this guy, which I never really understood because I always liked Hronek playing in Detroit. Vancouver is very much pleased with Hronek, and I think he's their top defenseman. I saw Adam Foote, who's the head coach, was singing his praises. He's among the league leaders in ice time. I mean, he's not up in like 4 or 5, not 1 like Quinn Hughes, but he and Hughes play together a lot, and he's going to carry a lot of the load, and he's a very good player. In net, Kevin Lankinen has kind of sort of been the guy. They have a younger goalie named Tolopilo, is I believe how you say his name. He's Belarusian, and he's been playing some too. We'll see. I mean, the Canucks haven't had their skate yet, so we'll see who the Lightning get tonight. For the Lightning, I would expect the same lineup. Good news on the practice front yesterday in that Lilleberg is no longer in a red no-contact jersey, but usually you need some practices with contact before you re-enter the lineup following an injury. He was wearing the full shield because, of course, the injury he took was to his face. So I wouldn't be surprised if he's actually going to come back into the lineup and be wearing the full shield, kind of like we saw from Dominic James when he got hurt earlier this year. So based on what I learned in practice yesterday, and based on how well the Lightning played against Seattle, it would seem like they're going to use the same lineup. But we're 3 hours behind you, Greg. So
A lot can happen, as they say.
We don't know yet. Yeah. The Lightning actually have an optional to the rink. So, I mean, they've kind of been doing that. You know, rest is a weapon. If you really want to go and put on the skates, you can. You're not even obliged to go to the rink. They're going to have a meeting at the hotel this morning. It's kind of what they did in Seattle 2 days ago, and certainly that worked pretty well. So we're probably not going to learn a lot about the lineup officially until game time.
Revenge game for Curtis Douglas? Apparently he's been scratched.
Played every
right?
game. Yeah, he's played
recently?
about half the games. I can actually see his game by game. He did not play against.
Has he scored a goal yet?
He's not. No.
How many fights has he been in? That's the question. Let's look at him.
Yeah, I should have had this page up, knowing that you would ask me that question. Now, he did get to keep his same number, 42. All right, he has played 3. He's been scratched 3. So his minutes, 652 in his first game, 953 in his second game, and he played 10:01 in his third game.
You know, dress Sabrin, let those two fight at center ice, and then it's over. I don't think that would happen, but
I will point out it was a different team. The Vancouver team was different. I mean, Quinn Hughes had 4 assists, mentioned. You know, Sherwood scored a big goal in that game. They had Mackenzie McEachran, who had an empty net goal. He had an assist on I think it was a Linus Karlsson goal. The Canucks scored 5 goals in the third period and beat the Lightning 6-2. At one point, that game was 2-0 Lightning. And if you remember that game, Greg, the Lightning had, I mean, to say they had a dominant first period would be an understatement. I mean, they must have had the puck like 85% of that period. And they ended up scoring late on a goal from Kucherov to go up 1-0. And then Gensel scored kind of early in the second on a power play. And it was 2-0. And the Canucks had absolutely nothing going. And then the Lightning took a penalty. And Jake DeBrusk scored, make it 2-1. They started to come alive a little bit, and they scored 3 quick goals right at the beginning of the third period, starting with a power play goal from Sherwood. So it became 2-2, 3-2, 4-2. Then they tacked on another goal later in the period, 5-2, and McEachran scored an empty netter. So it was a stunning loss for the Lightning because they had the game. I mean, to say they had the game completely in control, I mean, they could have been up like 4-5-0, but they weren't able to extend the lead, and the Canucks used their power play to get back in the game. The Canucks have not had a great power play this year, but in that one particular game, it certainly helped. Final shots in the game were 30-18 Lightning. I think the Canucks had 1 shot in the first period, if I'm remembering right. So kind of a cautionary tale. Like, I mean, it is a different team. They don't have Hughes anymore. There are other guys that played in that game who are not on this roster. But you laugh about the full 60, but you would acknowledge, and I would acknowledge too, like if you completely take your foot off the gas, right, an NHL team can beat you. So, you know, the Lightning, that was a little bit of by hook or by crook. Everything the Canucks were throwing at the net was going in, but I mean, it was a stunning loss for the Lightning, and hopefully one. Like, I don't think that they're going to need every single last point. We've been consistent on that, but you know, you look back at a game like that, and it's like that was one they should have certainly gotten some points out of, but they didn't. And when you lose 6-2, it's kind of hard to argue that you deserve points, right?
Agreed.
But that's the way it went back in mid-November. It was the day after they had that first game against the Panthers, which everybody was talking about, circled on the calendar. The Lightning went to Sunrise. They won that game, come home for the second half of a back-to-back, and the Canucks stung them.
Listen, I laugh at the full 60, but that doesn't mean you got to play
Yes.
just 10 minutes. I mean, we can acknowledge that, like let's
Yes.
somewhere in between here. It's like life. Give me somewhere in between. And I think we'll take it, but it is what it is. Kay says, let's go Bolts. We'll be at the game tonight, then heading off on a road trip to Alberta Friday to see them in Edmonton and Calgary. Now that is
Well, it is spring break.
Good stuff.
I mean,
That
I
is
guess, yeah, people are like, we don't want to go to Florida for spring break. We want to leave Florida.
Are they going to
Follow the
Canada
Lightning.
for spring break?
Well, it's not
What's the weather like?
freezing. Well,
what's the
Vancouver
weather
and
like?
Seattle, we've had a lot of rain, which is not uncommon.
Yeah, right.
The temperature has actually been moderate. I think it's going to get colder though when we
Gotcha.
when we head to Alberta for the weekend.
Yeah, Kay also says the Canucks have been scratching Douglas quite often. Do we think we'll see him tonight?
I think that they'll probably put him in against his former team. The Lightning used him when the Lightning went to Utah.
Mm-hmm.
He played in that game.
Zebra says, have the Panthers and Bolts crossed paths at all during this trip? Notice they are essentially taking the same trip, just different order.
It's actually not even the different order. It's just the Panthers are one step ahead of the Lightning. I did mention when we got to the hotel in Seattle, because we arrived an extra day early, we were going up. We being Dave Randorf, Brian Engblom, and I were like, we hit the elevator button, the elevator door opened, and Sam Bennett walked out. He was heading to the bus to go to the rink. So that was the extent of the overlap. And the Panthers played Seattle and went to Vancouver. They played Vancouver when the Lightning played Seattle, and I think they headed to Edmonton. They play the Oilers tonight. The Lightning are in Vancouver, and the Lightning will be staying in Vancouver, as we talked about after the game. And I think this is a back-to-back for the Panthers. In fact, I know it is, because this relates to what the Lightning are going to be looking at when they play the Flames. So the Flames play the Panthers tomorrow and then do not play Saturday. So the Flames will be having an off day, basically, on the Saturday when the Lightning play Edmonton. So again, it's not even a back-to-back for Calgary. That is a circumstantial advantage for the Flames.
Dustin says, we need a fast start tonight. Even though we will make the playoffs, you think they will sit some players for rest in the upcoming weeks? We need to keep the swagger unpushed. So let me address the latter part, because I do think this team, because of the injuries, by default have had some rest. And I actually think in the rare instance, this is where I would say maybe some of these guys need to play towards the end of the regular season, like a Victor Hedman and anybody else who's been in and out of the lineup, to get their timing down. I will acknowledge that. Now, if you come to me and say, look, Victor Hedman is still not 100%, and I'm just making this up, I have no idea, and you find out, like, you know what, we've clinched something, and I can sit him the last 2 games just to get healed up, I would do that. Of course, I would. And that's a position partner they've
done that with Vasilevsky sometimes too. Yeah.
And defense is, a position where, assuming guys are healthy, they have some guys they can fill in. Somebody can sit. 2 guys could maybe even sit, and you'd be in a pretty good spot. So I always err on the side of caution with the Lightning and star players who've played a ton. If they are dinged up at all, you can't sit everybody. But if somebody is ailing and you can give them an extra couple of days, I would do that. But I think for somebody like Hedman, assuming he's healthy, and anybody else who fits that description, call it a Ryan McDonough, call it a Braden Point, I would look to say, if you're healthy, let's try and finish out the season strong and play, because you can't rest everybody. But if somebody is banged up and you have the luxury of sitting someone, I would do that as well. So
I have to say I'm amused, if that's the right word, Dustin. We got the fan comment about, I know they are going to make the playoffs. Or
I love that
Dustin,
confidence, though.
Yeah, but I mean, what a different tune. Maybe Dustin felt that way even before they played Seattle, but we were getting much different types of comments before they won 1 game in Seattle. So I would say, let's not look too far ahead. The Lightning still need to do some work to get some points to reach the point where they can clinch a playoff spot. When and if they clinch that spot, depending on what is going on with how the team is playing, how banged up guys are, let's cross that potentially rest players bridge at that point. I did see, I think it was yesterday, the NHL's morning skate in their release, or maybe it was today, said, we are 1 month away. I think it was yesterday. 1 month away from the start of the NHL playoffs because they know the start date. That's a month. A little less than a month now because the regular season for the Lightning is going to end on the 15th. That's not a week, right? We still have a ways to go here. And there are enough games that, I think we're just way too early to start discussing whatever they call it,
Yeah.
Rest management. What is it? Load management. That's what the NBA calls it, right?
They do call it. And they frowned on the load management type thing.
Yes. That's not really done in hockey that much. I mean, I think I remember one year. Which year was it? The Lightning had like a road trip for a single game in Game 82 in Vasilevsky. Yeah. They just said stay home. Or maybe it was late in the regular season, final week of the regular season. They're like, Vassy, just don't even bother getting on the airplane. It's fine. That I could see.
Yeah,
that I could see.
Don't get on a plane and have you in another.
This year, though, the Lightning are on a road trip, and then they finish with their last two at home. So
when players stay back, I'm curious. You would know this better than I do. Do they have to have a personnel, somebody from the team there with them? Like if somebody's rehabbing, or let's say they're sitting.
Well, rehabbing is different than the Vassy situation.
So like the Vassy,
just said,
but if somebody wanted to work,
but
if somebody wanted to go to the ice and work on some things, let's say they're completely healthy, but it's one of those load management, stay home. Do they have somebody from the team that essentially could work out with them, or is it like, here's the keys of the gym? If you need to go in there and get on the ice, I'm sure there's somebody there from the staff that might be able to, because everybody's traveling.
Right. Well, the simple answer is so for a non-injured player, the simple answer is yes. There are people around who can give a player access. I'm speaking a little bit out of turn here because I've never actually stepped in those shoes, right? I'm on the trips. But, for example, if somebody... Usually it's a player.
I put you in a tough spot.
Because usually a player, if the player is staying back, they are rehabbing. And if they are rehabbing, somebody is there working with them.
Somebody has to be there with them.
Like a strength and conditioning coach or one of the trainers. I mean, the two main trainers, Tom Mulligan and Mikey Poirier are usually on the trips. But somebody is there to work with them as they rehab. Gotcha. If the player has no rehab at all and just for some reason is not on the trip, I believe they have access. In fact, I'm certain they have access if they want the access
and stuff
to work out. Now, if the NCAA tournament is at Benchmark International Arena starting today, I mean, I think that they're setting everything up. The 8 teams that are going to be playing are going to be practicing. Like, there's no ice, right? So that would be a situation where you're going to TGH Iceplex. Yeah. But we know Kucherov skates there a lot over the summer. I think he does a lot by himself, and he probably did a lot during the Olympic break. I think during the Olympic break, and I believe this was true for the Foreign Nations face-off as well, you had to have time off. Like, the teams were not allowed to actually have structured practice. There was a date when that restriction was lifted. But a player can go and work out on their own if they want. It's like that meme of the Jets player who goes to the facility and tries his key card, and you know the one I'm talking about? I think it's a Jets player, right? Like, wait a minute, what's going on here? I don't think it's like that.
That'd actually be pretty funny.
Yeah.
The only thing funny would have a Chase Claypool. First down. Get up and move it. All right. Is this Basil? Yeah, I've got to think, right? So disappointed in Bjorkstrand. Was thrilled when we got him last year, but he just hasn't contributed regularly. He seems incapable of handling a pass cleanly, which really hurts the PP. A little harsh, but you know what? I will say this. He did have issues with handling cross-ice passes when he was really slumping. And I remember talking that with you, and in between breaks, I was like, look, you can see even Kucherov's face when he was passing the puck. I was like, come on.
Yeah.
I think that's gotten better. I think most people can look at it and say it hasn't gone the way Oliver has wanted to this year.
Probably not, but I mean, let's not forget he does have 9 power play goals this year, tied with Radish for the team lead. Now, I think I mentioned that to Phil on a previous homestand. He's like, yeah, but think how many more he could have had. Like, Phil was talking about the Kucherov irritation factor, and Kucherov has set Bjorkstrand up for lots of great looks. So Phil's point is, he could have more than 9, which is true. I think, and again, these are words that we're reading, so I can only react to the word that showed up on the screen, which Basil wrote. Incapable is, I think, an overstatement. But it is true that there are times when a pass, and it's not even a one-timer, a pass comes to him, and it does affect the rhythm of the power play if he has to, if he bobbles it, has to settle it down. What you want on the Lightning's power play, especially the first unit that is based on timing, you want boom, 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 right? Look at the goal that Hagel scored against Seattle, which, that was a second unit goal with Kucherov still on the ice. It was tic-tac-toe, right? Or maybe just tac-toe, 2 passes. Kucherov to Gonsalves, cross ice to Hagel, in the net. Mm-hmm. That's how that unit tends to excel, and if you're going to bobble pucks, that's going to slow down the rhythm. There has been some of that. I acknowledge that, Basil. But to say that he is incapable of accepting a pass, I think is an overstatement.
Little harsh, Basil. But
that's love why the passion, though.
That's why I do think judge Bjorkstrand not on what he does for your team during the regular season. Yes. Judge him by what he does for your team in the postseason. I think you sound like
FDR.
What the hell? I could be a politician, right?
Yes.
And then if somebody calls me and says, "Greg, didn't you say that?" I'll say, "No, I didn't," and I'll just deny it. But I think it's fair to say for Bjorkstrand, Hedman, McDonough's, anybody that has found inconsistencies with their play, whether through injuries or just production, look at the playoffs as a reset. I have to look at it as a reset. And I think they're mature enough to understand that. Mm-hmm. Carl says, by all means, grab all these points possible right now. But I don't just want Tampa Bay to limp to the playoffs. This team was dangerous elite till February. And I want them to find that. The Buffalo close loss showed it's there.
Well, they're going to need to find that. In a playoff series, you have to play better unless you run into a team that completely unravels. You're going to have to play better than you played in the regular season. If you're going to have any kind of success in the playoffs, you need to elevate. I mean, to do well in the playoffs, you need to play at a level generally that is higher than what you saw in the regular season, in part because the intensity is going to go up on the other side. Your side, too. It's a higher intensity game, and you have good teams. If you make the playoffs, you're a good team. Success in the playoffs requires high-level hockey. It is hard to win a playoff series playing poorly or just average, unless you have something weird happen, like your goalie is just out of his mind. You're incredibly efficient, let's say, on your power play that offsets average play 5-on-5. That is rare, though. So I agree with Carl Sagan, whatever his number was. I think it's a necessity, but they have some time to get there. And to your point, you really don't care if they play just mezza in game 81 and game 82, as long as game 1 of the playoffs,
Yeah, I mean, look, I think
it snaps to attention.
I agree with the overall sentiment. I think if they're playing like this come playoff time, they're not going to win.
Yeah.
I have just said I've seen too many examples where even if this team was playing like this at the end of the regular season, that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to play like that come playoff time. I do think a light switches, partner. I do. I believe that. I think guys who are slumping can do a reset because we've seen players put all of that stuff aside in the regular season and understand that this is a different animal in the postseason. There's no other sport that has drastically different intensity levels than the regular season in the NHL and postseason in the NHL. Mm-hmm. And with that comes different determination and play. And so even a player who is slumping understands that, hey, in the first round of the playoffs, I really need to button up. I need to pay attention to detail. I need to hustle back on a 2-on-1. I'm going to block a shot. And these things all happen right out of the gates with just about every team. So I anticipate their play will improve from what it is today. Not only because it has to, but because I've seen examples where it has as well. So that's how I would answer that question, and we'll just kind of move on from that. And look, time will tell.
I did realize, Greg, I misspoke. I misidentified my famous president speech.
Was it JFK? Who were you talking about?
Yeah, JFK. Okay. Ask not what you can do for ask not what your country can do for you. Ask not what Bjorkstrand can do in the regular season. But FDR had some good ones too. We have nothing to fear but fear itself.
That's a great one, actually.
Yeah.
Or the block shot. Fear the block shot. You don't want to get hurt. That's what I would do.
Greg fears the block shot.
Have you noticed the officials are doing a better job of picking up broken sticks? Although I still think that is an issue.
We had one in a game. It might have been that game that I was watching between the Devils and Bruins that I was talking about on ESPN. There was a broken stick on the ice, and it interfered with, it had been on the ice for 15, 20 seconds, and it interfered with the puck.
Have we ever seen a goal? Like, that would be a goal, right? If a puck went off a broken stick on the ice past the goaltender, I'm assuming that's a goal. We've never seen it.
I would think it's a goal, yes.
You would think that's
I've
a goal,
never
right?
seen that.
Like, pick it up. Why leave it there? If for any other reason, it's a dangerous thing. Like
a player could trip on the stick.
My goodness, like hockey's dangerous to begin with. It's so fast. But if you have a chance to pick up a stick, pick it up. You fix the ice during intermissions to make sure the ice is smooth because you don't want bad ice. Understanding some ices are better than others, but pick up the stick.
Mm-hmm.
I think next time I say stupid stick, like Phil does when they break. Lucas says, interesting to hear a superstar like McKinnon speak so candidly about his dislike of 11 and 7 and line mixing. Curious if that's a majority feeling in the league or if that's just a quirk of his. I didn't hear those comments. When did he make
so Colorado's been struggling. Now, Colorado had a shootout loss against Dallas. Dallas has gotten close to Colorado in the standings. Team. Yeah, and Dallas has been on a point streak. They lost one game in regulation a couple of games ago, but other than that, they've been on a long streak where they've gotten points. So they've gotten close to Colorado. I think it's a 2-point gap, which is a credit to Dallas making up ground. So they may end up getting first. They just beat Colorado in a shootout. Colorado has been struggling, and it might have been after they lost to Pittsburgh where they got blown out, honestly. And McKinnon said, I don't like 11 and 7 because it mixes up the continuity of the pairs, basically. I think he was actually talking more about the defensemen than the forwards. Usually if you're a forward and it's 11-7, that means you get more ice time, although McKinnon gets plenty of ice time anyway. So some teams don't use 11 and 7 a lot. I confess, I do not know if Colorado has in the past used 11 and 7 a lot. The Lightning have. And they've just used it recently, coming out of the Olympic break. I think generally if you are winning, the lineup that you're using, the players like. If you're not winning and there's a little bit of a different lineup, it is more understandable that the players might complain. And McKinnon speaks his mind. He does. He's pretty much no holds barred, this guy. Like, he will say what he is thinking, which, as a reporter or as a fan hearing the interview, we appreciate honesty, right? So that is very consistent with McKinnon. He is honest about this stuff. So it may have been a little frustration talking, but also there may be a kernel of truth, maybe more than a kernel, about his feelings on the matter. I do not think that is a universal thought. Some coaches do like using 11 and 7 based on who they have on their roster. And there are advantages in using an 11-7 lineup configuration. Matchup advantages, double shifting some of your top guys. If you get an injury on defense, you still have 6 instead of 5. I mean, we've kind of talked about this now. Of course, you get an injury at forward, you're down to 10. But forwards, you have more forwards to spread the wealth there for the minutes. You have fewer defensemen. So losing a defenseman when you're dressing 6 puts more of a burden on the other 5, as opposed to more of a burden on 10 forwards, as opposed to 11. If you went 11 and 7, lost the forward. So Those are my 2 cents on it. The Lightning won a lot of games under John Cooper, have won and will win a lot of games using 11 and 7.
Yeah.
And I can tell you right now, whoever that 7th defenseman is, who might be out of the lineup otherwise, is very happy that they went 11 and 7 because it meant that that player got to be in the lineup.
Yeah. That's fair. 11 and 7, you have your forwards going a little bit more. But you ask me more of the question if it's something around the league, particularly with star players. I would just say I think star players are like a lot of us in terms of creatures of habit, and I think they'd like to have the same line mates if they can, but they also want to play a lot too. So
yeah, that's for sure.
I think that's all fair game.
By the way, speaking of Pittsburgh, another very impressive performance by the Penguins where they were down multiple times and late to Carolina, got the lead, blew the lead,
really.
But they got another point. They've had some wild games with Carolina. If they both make the playoffs and they both get through a round, that would be a very, assuming Carolina finishes first, that would be a very interesting playoff matchup. And, based on how they've competed against each other, because Pittsburgh scored 2 sixth attacker goals in the previous meeting to get the game to overtime.
You want to talk about executives of the year? Kyle Dubas needs to be in that conversation because if you look at some of the free agents he's brought in on like 1-year deals, taking flyers on them, like Anthony Mantha has 26 goals. I mean, we've seen Mantha when he was with Detroit.
Yeah.
And he had some injuries, so they bring him back.
Yeah, and he didn't have a particularly memorable run in Washington.
No, but he's scoring.
Yeah.
Brazeau, I mean,
yeah,
16 goals. So what I'm saying is he's kind of rebuilding on the fly. We talk about how hard that is, and then I think Crosby
made the trade with Edmonton for the goaltending.
Yeah, Skinner's
situation.
Stability, and they've Shelovs has been good. Anyways, I don't even know if they're going to make the playoffs though.
That's they might miss the playoffs, and they also may make the playoffs and be in the wild card and could play Carolina in the first round,
which would be a tough matchup for them.
Yeah, and I think they have another game coming up in Pittsburgh.
They do on Sunday.
2 teams.
They do on Sunday. So, and it's funny, they're Crosby apparently and Svechnikov were going at it. So Svechnikov, I think it's not
Svechnikov likes he's back though now. That's Pittsburgh kind of survived during the Crosby injury.
He had a goal. And it's like, if he's able to kind of get back. But it speaks to the competitiveness in the East with a lot of these teams. I still think Columbus is going to have a say here.
I cannot believe Columbus is not yet in the top 8 based on how well they've played. But they just keep winning and winning and winning.
Everybody
and
else
can't. Yeah, they can't. Ottawa did lose in regulation, though, last night. And that was a game that I watched a little bit of. And Ottawa was all over Washington in the first. Washington scored 2 in the second. And then Ottawa was all over Washington in the third, scored a 6th attacker goal, and almost tied it. And then Washington scored an empty netter. So it's a regulation loss for Ottawa. I think Ottawa is a dangerous team, though. And they're not done yet, but they have some ground to make up. Anyway, we do have some news, which I guess we should address before we run out of time here, as far as we being Lightning broadcast.
Some news, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
So basically what's going to happen for the next 3 games, Dave Randorf is back in Tampa. He had some matters he needed to attend to. Everything is fine, but he is not with the team. So what the Lightning asked us to do, Dave Randorf and me, we are like trading places. So
it's a good movie.
We know that we can broadcast games on radio from the studio in Tampa. It is much harder to do that on television when you have one person in Tampa and everybody else on location. So the most direct solution, and really if I can use the word easiest solution, was to have me step into Dave's seat on TV, and Dave will do the next 3 games on radio. So it'll be Brian Engblom and me on the telecast tonight, Saturday, and Sunday. Dave Randorf will do those 3 games from the studio in Tampa, and then we'll switch back, obviously, when the team comes home. So if people are tuning in on television tonight,
they're going to see you.
Well, they'll see me for a brief period because the on-camera stuff is not very
Your hair
long,
looks
but they'll
good.
hear my voice.
I like your hair.
Thank you.
Your hair looks good, partner.
Yeah, I better make sure that it's not too wild tonight.
I'll miss you for the next 3 games. I like to have our
yes.
back and forth in the pregame, and then we do in the postgame.
But you'll hear
will be fine.
Dave and Phil are doing the game tonight on radio. So
Espo's back tonight.
Phil's up late. Yes, Phil will be up late.
Boy.
So that's some news, and I think the Lightning are going to have some sort of announcement about it later today.
So wait, the Audibel guy is going to be on doing color commentary tonight? I always joke.
Do you think Phil is more well known for his hockey career, his statue in front of Benchmark International Arena, or the Audibel commercial?
Audibel's picking up steam. I'm going to tell you. I told everybody jokingly, I said we should have the Audibel hearing aid on his statue.
Yes.
It's outside.
Well, I feel somewhat guilty because he laughs. He's like, if I hadn't done games with Dave for 25 years, I wouldn't need hearing aids. But
well,
I have them too, so
yeah, that's all right. I'm sure I'll have them.
Comes with the cost of yelling
doing what we do, right?
For all these years. Yes.
Let's see. Who else? Who up reminiscing on Cedric Paquette's game winner in the 2015 finals? This was Isaac. I don't know where.
Game 3 against Chicago. Where did that come from?
I guess maybe he was just. Here was the who up reminiscing on Cedric Paquette's game winner in the. I don't know. Is there a
Lightning
won
game 3? They were up 2-1. They had that series, if not in their grasp. They had an edge in the series, and they really outplayed Chicago in game 4. It was a little bit of a Crawford goalie steal in game 4. That was the one game Vasilevsky started. He didn't play badly. It was 2-1, but he didn't face a lot of shots. And the Hawks kind of escaped that game, and the Lightning never got the lead. I don't think the Lightning had the lead in the final 3 games of the series. They were all low scoring. But for sure in games 5 and 6, it was actually games 4 and 5. It was 1-0 Chicago. The Lightning tied it at 1, and then the Hawks retook the lead. And in game 6, it was 2-0. So, but game 4 was the key win.
Yeah.
Where the Lightning really outplayed the Hawks and Crawford got his team the win. And the reason the Lightning were in a position to go up 3-1 is they won game 3. Paquette scored late to break that tie.
If Johnson isn't playing with essentially was a broken wrist,
Bishop
gets hurt, do we know? Do you feel
those are if, ands, or buts that every team goes through, though, because it's rare to see a team in the Stanley Cup final that isn't dealing with some kind of an injury. Or
were the Hawks dealing with any significant injuries? Not to their key guys.
Honestly,
we knew, right?
I can't remember. Yeah, I mean, most players are dealing with injuries. Yeah. The injury to Johnson was significant enough that it really affected his ability to do what he had done up until that.
And he was a machine at that point. I mean, he was
great.
Just a difference maker.
He probably wins the Conn Smythe if the Lightning win that series.
That's good barroom talk.
Yeah.
Hey, in 2015.
But how many other teams have gotten to the Stanley Cup final and lost because they sustained an injury? I mean, there are probably a lot, through the years.
Sure.
Look at the Lightning in 2022. I don't know how much this would have made a difference, but they didn't have Braden Point. He got hurt earlier. He tried to play games 1 and 2, but was not himself. And, Cirelli got a significant injury in game 4 and gamed it out, but he wasn't the same guy. That's part of it. You have to be a little lucky to avoid those injuries.
Well, Stamkos, had a couple of years, right, where he was the one. He comes back and plays Game 7 against Pittsburgh, right?
Yes.
And that was what year was that?
That's a little different, though. Where maybe the Lightning would have done better in that series had they had Stamkos healthy throughout.
Well, because that was the series. Matt Murray, Vasi played unreal, but
he did. Yes.
Having another elite scorer could have.
But you asked specifically, would the Lightning have beaten Chicago if Tyler Johnson hadn't gotten hurt in game 1, even though he played through the series? It is impossible to know, but there's no rewriting history. That injury happened. So that is part of
it's part of it.
Many things that you need to fall your way to win a Stanley Cup.
I agree. This question comes from B-Love. Speaking of crossing paths with the Cats, did either of you see the interview with Hedman and Reinhart on Hockey Night in Canada? You could feel the tension through the TV. I did not see that.
I did not see that either.
Curious what that was when we see tension? Like, what was the?
Yes.
Was it?
Well, I'm sure they didn't attack each other. I think that there's mutual respect between players of their caliber, but.
Robert says, curious to know your guys' Lightning Mount Rushmore. So many great players to choose from.
Yeah, you only get to pick 4. I mean, putting 4 on there, that's a tough one. I mean, the 2 that are in the rafters right now, you probably have to include them. Kucherov is going to be on there.
I mean, I think you have to have Stamkos, and I think you have to have Vasi.
Yeah, so that's 5 already. So who are you taking out?
Is it sacrilege to take out LeCavier?
Yeah, I don't know.
Is that sacrilege?
That's
I don't know.
A tough one. I mean, I think that the Lightning's Mount Rushmore
question.
needs to have more than 4.
Can we expand it?
Yes.
Can we?
Well, the league expands, so, you know.
Yeah. And, Hedman's there.
And Hedman. Mm-hmm.
You know, there are
that's
a lot
too
of guys.
difficult to answer.
Do you have Phil? I think Phil has to probably be there. Coach, owner, not owner, brought the team here. I mean, you could do John Cooper too if we're going to go that route. You could do Vinnick. I mean, you really could if you wanted to get all of the departments.
Like we talk about having good problems to have. That is a good problem to think about because there's so many.
I want Mish and Espo together from the broadcasting perspective
with our hearing aids.
That would be funny. There's a lot of, if you think outside the box, that gets harder. If you're just going to go players, I think you very easily, I'll grant you Marty, but I think the rest have to be coming from this generation because I think this is the golden era of Lightning hockey. I've made the comment, I actually think this is the golden era of Tampa Bay sports. I haven't been here, obviously. I've seen some really good teams over the years covering. What this group has done, and I'm going to include the coach in it, something you don't see in sports too often. And we're just not talking about good players. We're talking about Hall of Famers and maybe like the conversations of in that best of all time. Mm-hmm. I do. I think you're there with some of these guys. And I think you have to acknowledge that a little bit. Mark says, it's funny because I thought if they had Bjorkstrand in the playoffs last year, they could have potentially defeated Florida with the way he was starting to heat up. Let's hope he goes off soon. I mean, that's fair. That's fair.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like the Johnson question.
Yeah.
He didn't have Bjorkstrand, so it's hard to know how the series might have been different or looked different.
Yeah.
Would they have done better than 3 for 18 on the power play in that series? Who knows? They've had enough injuries this year that let's hope that last year they didn't have a lot of injuries. Moser was maybe the most significant one where he missed that time in the middle part of the season. They had all these injuries down the stretch and in the playoffs. Hopefully the opposite will be true this year where the regular season was filled with all these injuries and they can get healthy and stay healthy for the playoffs.
Yeah. It's tough to break that down. I get the question. I don't know what else more to add other than, I think when you take a look at Bjorkstrand and his ability to score, there are always room and always space at the table to have somebody and sit there with you. And if he can just, I think it's the eye test with me with Bjorkstrand. I'm not asking him to take over games. I'm just asking him to be dangerous because with that shot, you should be more dangerous when you get the puck. Mm-hmm. And it can't just be on the power play, although that's part of it.
Yeah.
I want to see him 5-on-5. I know Julian had talked about when the trade deadline was happening afterwards, and he was talking about, we actually like Bjorkstrand's 5-on-5 play. That might just be GM speak. That could be some analytics looking at it.
He was part of the shutdown line in Seattle, though, with Gord and Eli Tolvanen. Not only did he tell me that was when Seattle made the playoffs and beat Colorado in the first round. Bjorkstrand told me that, but I also heard that from Everett Fitzhugh when I talked with Everett. He does the radio for Seattle. He's like, because I mentioned Gord's on the Lightning's kind of shutdown line with Girgensons and Holmberg. And he's like, that was Yanni Gord for Seattle with Bjorkstrand.
And I appreciate
Bjorkstrand
that.
played in that role for Seattle in addition to, being a 20-goal scorer.
So I think when I look at Bjorkstrand, I look at it and say, if you're going to provide me the good defensive play, that's secondary. I got you thinking you were going to really help me offensively, particularly with the depth scoring. However you want to quantify that. Anything else I get from you is gravy. I got you because you can fill the net and you have an elite shot. I want to see that. Even if you're not scoring, I just want to see you be dangerous. I think it's in him. I just want to see more of it. I don't think that's anything outrageous. Basil is responding here. Says, following up on Bjorkstrand, during the Columbus game, their announcers recounted an interview with him. Said that it's a lot of pressure playing with 86. Yeah, I mean, that's fair.
Yeah.
We have no idea what that's like. I get that. Kucherov is probably a very demanding player. If you go to games, all you have to do is watch him.
Mm-hmm.
How upset does he get when it doesn't go his way? Or if he makes a pass and somebody fumbles it, he's looking up or he's slamming his stick. Language. I just think, and is he one of those players too, Dave, where immediately he's emotional and then gets it out of his system and he moves on? There are a lot of people like that. Anyways, Gene says, thanks for the heads up regarding the Dave and Dave movement for the next 3 games. Zebra, this was another interesting one back at that 2015 conversation part of the Hedman-Bishop collision, in my opinion, messed us up mentally and never recovered. Johnson's hand issue was also a problem. Fun times. Yeah.
Yeah, so for the fans who maybe weren't following the Lightning in 2015, Game 5 in Tampa, Ben Bishop comes out, first period, Ben Bishop comes out to play a puck. It's kind of toward the circle. Like, he comes pretty far out of the net, but Bishop was very good at playing the puck. So this was not unusual for him. So he kind of comes to the bottom of the circle to his right, which is Hedman's side. Hedman's going back to play the puck, and they collided with each other. And Patrick Sharp, I believe it was Patrick Sharp, got the puck, and Bishop's out of the net. He just strolled in and tapped it in. Chicago took a 1-0 lead. That was a big play, and it gave the Hawks an early lead. But I will just point out, the Lightning did tie that game. That was a 1-1 game going into the third, and the Hawks broke the tie. If I'm remembering right, and if I am not, I'm going off the top of my head here, so the fans can correct me if I'm wrong. It was Antoine Vermette who kind of scored on he got a little bit of a bounce on a rebound. He went to the net and chipped it in. That made it 2-1. So, yes, the collision was a big play early in the game, but you're still tied in the third period.
You're still okay.
In Game 5. Yeah, like you're in the game, right? Yeah. So I don't know if it had an effect. I think what kind of happened was the Hawks survived Game 4. I remember because the Lightning spent the night in Chicago after Game 4. And I saw this is when, newspapers were everywhere, right? It was 11 years ago. But the newspaper headline, I got a coffee the next morning and, the Sun Times or whatever, had it on the front page. And it was something like Hawks escape or something like, I mean, that is exactly what happened. And once they escaped, they were the season playoff team. The Lightning were the new kids on the block. And the Hawks are like, this series is 2-2. We are locking it down. And I thought Chicago played championship level defense in the final 2 games. They didn't need to rely as much on Crawford. That was kind of their mulligan, and they survived it. Mulligan's the wrong word. But that was the game where they didn't play they didn't play well enough to win, but they won. They got through that, and they're like, not happening again. Like, they're going to earn everything that they are going to get. We're not giving them anything. And I thought the Hawks played championship level defense. They played like a championship team in games 5 and 6. They did catch a break with the Bishop-Hedman collision. I agree with that.
Yeah.
But the Lightning had a hard time generating much of anything in those final 2 games in that series. Now, if they win game 4 and it's 3-1, do the Hawks still kind of lock it down? They're like, we're facing elimination. We absolutely have to. Yeah, they could try, but you still have to try and win 3 in a row facing elimination. It's different. And even having said that, games 5 and 6 were close. So it might have unfolded differently at the Lightning won game 4. I remember Stamkos in the Lightning pulled the goalie in game 4 and Stamkos had an open net.
Yeah.
And it was Seabrook got his stick in the way. Stamkos, I mean, it's a 4x6. Like, it was a rebound. Crawford's down, comes right to Stamkos in the middle of the ice, and literally Seabrook, like, lunges with his stick. It nicks off the top of the stick and goes over the net. Like, that was the sort of game
play.
It was. Yeah, that was the sort of game it was for the Lightning. But they didn't have another game like that in the series where they really made Chicago uncomfortable.
I want you to enjoy, not you, Mish, because you'll be on TV. Enjoy some Reif Rum.
Are you saying
versatile.
I can enjoy it on radio?
Afterwards.
What are you saying?
Well, yeah, that's true. Now pouring at Benchmark International Arena. Order a tropical wave or a lightning mule and taste why fans are switching. Reif Rum is a premium craft Florida local rum built on authenticity, quality, and easy drinkability. Ask for Reif Rum by name. Go Bolts, enjoy responsibly. How about this comment from B-Love responds again, says, Hetty said twice on air he wouldn't have agreed to the interview if he knew Reinhart was going to be there. Kevin Bieksa confirmed the discomfort after.
We'll have to take your word for it. Yeah, I missed all of that.
Kay says,
Hedman would have played with Forsling, though, during the Olympics. I mean, I wonder if it's because it wasn't another Swede. I don't know. Do you think there was, like, all of this, like, friction and tension between Hedman and Forsling, or other, Panthers and Lightning players who were teammates during the Olympics?
That's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't know either. You just never know. Kay says, hopefully Vancouver is treating you well, Mish. Apologies for the downpour of rain.
Yeah, I would have gone running out. Actually, I took the day off yesterday because I really pounded the pavement in Seattle where it was raining somewhat. It rained hard here yesterday. I haven't actually checked to see how bad it's raining.
Mark says, I also saw the Sportsnet thing, and I can confirm there was a lot of
tension.
Lightning
being like bees to honey on this stuff, aren't they?
Well, that's why we love you guys, because I had not seen
that.
And that would probably be something that's
well, admittedly, it was on Sportsnet, which we wouldn't be getting that unless we're seeing a clip on the internet or something.
And usually
like
there are stuff that goes viral that you will see,
yeah.
but I haven't seen anything yet. That doesn't mean it's not happening, but it is what it is. So who the heck knows? All right. Well, that's going to wrap it up for us here tonight, partner.
Yes.
I will then talk to you. We're going to tape tomorrow.
Yes, this does not affect my appearance on Power Lunch,
this show.
Although we only have one more show this week.
Correct.
Tomorrow we'll be in Vancouver, and we are pre-taping tomorrow, so it will be a little bit of an early wakey time for me, which is fine. I've been getting up actually kind of sort of East Coast time anyway, so. But you guys have your kids home, spring break, so this will give you a chance to enjoy the day.
It is what it is there. And then we'll have you back on the radio then after this weekend.
Yes.
Because we got a back-to-back.
This is a 3-game stint over 4 days.
All right. Well, have fun on TV. That's what I'll say to you on that. And then
we can talk about it tomorrow.
Yeah, we'll talk about
maybe
that.
Maybe they'll be like, we're gonna fight. We'll go back to radio.
I'm sure.
Let's hope it doesn't reach that level. But
no, you'll be fine.
Yes, I will effort to do the best I can.
Yes.
And Brian and I have worked together numerous times,
which is nice.
So yes. I will allow him to carry me tonight.
Is this the first TV game?
I've done some TV before, but never for. I mean, I've never done an NHL Lightning game on TV. If you count streaming, like for those tournaments, which is kind of sort of like TV, and I've done some other TV, but this is kind of this is the first time anything like this has occurred.
At the NHL professional level.
At the NHL level,
yeah, for sure. All right. Well, we'll talk about it tomorrow, and then of course the games tonight. We go on the air pregame starting at 9:30. So be another late one. We'll be there for you. Partner, good job as always. I will talk to you tomorrow morning when we tape. Thanks to Steve Versnick. Thanks to all of you for listening. We appreciate you guys. I am Greg Linnelli. You've been listening to Power Lunch on Lightning Radio.